just, here we are. Can you see my screen?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And let me start with the attempt to be very, very short on a very, I would say, large and very difficult topic. So my first thing is the main points of discussion. That would be some kind of an introduction on canonical writings in the ancient Near East, and then the two main corpuses of Hittite documents that can be considered as canonical writings, the Hittite ritual texts and the Hittite laws. And then I will try to conclude shortly on that saying. So the introduction. When we speak about canon, we look for a collection of writings of fixed form, which received acknowledgement as authoritative. Using the word writings in the ancient world of the first and second millennia BCE, we mainly deal with the work of elite writers and royal collections of writings. I will therefore use the term canon in my dealing with the ancient Near Eastern material under the following definition: text that received a special status in such a way that they are regarded authoritative. Some may be sacred or at the status of scriptures, and which were collected, copied, and recopied for hundreds of years by the scholars of their societies. Among scholars studying the ancient Near Eastern text corpus, we find here and there the use of the terms scriptures and canonized texts. Avigdor Horvitz, my doctoral mentor, may his memory be blessed, a Hebrew Bible and Assyriology scholar, has tackled the issue of canon in Mesopotamian texts already in 1997 and concluded that even if we allow ourselves to speak of canonical texts in Mesopotamia, we cannot speak of a Mesopotamian canon. On the other hand, Nili Shupak, an Egyptologist, does use the terminology of Egyptian canon as a select collection of works belonging to a single genre, namely wisdom, which served as the teaching corpus of the Ramesside school. Shupak identifies 5 features that allow her to locate a canon in the Egyptian texts, and she identifies authoritative text, selectivity, model for emulation, that it is normative literature, and is an elevation of past wisdom. Some of these features are also relevant to Hittite texts. In a recent article, James Hofmeyr offers a short look at the way ancient texts were rediscovered when the cultures that surrounded ancient Israel, correlating them with the estimated time when the Book of Law, the Sefer Torah, was found in the temple during renovations at the time of King Doshisha of Judah, 2 Kings 22. Hofmeyr collected cases of recovering of manuscripts from Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Hittite cultures. From Mesopotamia, he mentions the finding of texts during temple renovations, as well as the library of Ashurbanipal, who ordered the collecting of texts from other places in his empire. From Egypt, he mentions the copying of texts on tombs from very early times. Hofmeyr identifies the Egyptian material as having canonical status, and I would not read it, but That's what he says. Ancient Near Eastern texts include materials that were transmitted over long periods, much of it as related to the connections between the divine world and humanity. Texts that were transmitted over generations by being copied with little change or with some cultural changes are, in a sense, canonical. In later biblical canonic material, we find that the scribes and copyists tended to copy texts while indicating the mistaken places. That is, in order to copy faithfully, they would copy the mistake and only indicate the corrected form in the margins. This custom is a continuation of the ancient Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and Hittite scribal work, who used to indicate a broken text, tablet, stone, or papyrus. And Egyptian scribe wrote at the end of the papyrus, I'm sorry. Okay. It is finished from the beginning to the end as it was found in writing. So the next thing, Hittite canonical texts. Hittite texts are known to us almost exclusively as written on clay tablets, and first written in the Akkadian language, then in Hittite language. The Hittites were thus highly influenced by the writings in Akkadian and learned various genres which they managed to transfer to their own writings. Today, it is evident that, for example, Hittite prayers were created using the form and even contents of Old Babylonian forerunners. Scribal customs, methods, and knowledge were transferred between royal houses in the second and first millennium BCE. I introduced two specific collections of texts coming from the Royal Archive of Hattusha. One such textual collection is the Hittite laws, and the other, with which I will start, is the collection of ritual texts, both of which are examples of authoritative collections of cultic legal material, which, in my understanding, held the status of sacredness. The Hittite ritual texts. The majority of the Hittite texts are prescriptive texts for the cult of the Hittite kingdom. The ritual text collected from various parts of central Anatolia included prescriptions for festival ceremonies, sacrificial activities, using cultic terminology reflecting the Hattian, Luvian, Hurrian language, as well as Akkadian, thus showing that their probable origin was not strictly in the Hittite-speaking population, but belonged to several ethnic groups of second millennium Anatolia. During the 400 years of the Hattusha archives, they were copied, recopied, and strictly organized and kept in their archives of the capital. They should therefore be considered a cultic corpus which preserved the relations between the royals, their priests, and their gods. Their fulfillment was seen as the duty of the king and his household. And Hattushili I, when offering his wisdom to Murshili I, his heir, said to him and to the royal council, be very careful about the matter of the gods, and I skip. You, Murshili, must not postpone them, nor fall behind in your deliveries. If you were to postpone them, it would be evil, as indeed was the former condition. So be it. This language will prevail in future texts throughout the existence of the Hittite kingdom and will become a major derive of a Hittite royal devotion. One of the most important points can be seen in the vow taken by the Hittite king Muatali II in a prayer to the gods, saying he will inquire for the cultic rules. that is the law in previous records. The words of rules or laws in this text is Ishriul and Sheklai. And you could see that Muatali says here that he is requesting to hear his own oath, and then he wishes to receive the God's Shaklai, the God's rules, and then he will do it through he will discover now on the written authoritative tablets. That's very important. What would he discover? The Ishchiul, the laws of the gods. And that is, of course, Muatali II must have referred here to the oath he himself had taken with the Ishchiul to the gods. And I will continue. The place of the authoritative tablets being used is mentioned as well in other wisdom texts. And it goes like that. Now you be quiet and listen. Watch out with wisdom these words which are placed in front of mankind. Hold them as Ishriul and know them with your heart. Investigate them by the assembly, that is the court, and look them up on the authoritative tablet. The custom of looking for ancient text in correlation to cultic activity is also offered in dire times of pandemic, when the Hittite king Mushili II in a prayer to the gods speaks thus, and I will just point out the end of it. People have been dying in Hati, and we have never performed the ritual of the Euphrates. And this is the reason for looking for the tablets and making, recovering this ritual of the Euphrates. Thus, the answer in difficult times is found in ancient texts. Even more so, dire situations brought the Hittite scribes to create in their archives composite tablets titled by Hittitologists as Zamel Tafeln, that is collected tablets. This kind of tablets include several texts on the same tablet. These will be several rituals or incantations, or can refer to a similar case of difficulty such as plague or sickness, or will be by a same author. But as Manfred Hutter says, as a compilation connecting the rituals with historical past events, they are meant for posterity. An example of such tablet is KUB 41, which compiled 3 texts: a ritual prescription against the enemy, the Kashka, followed by Akkadian and Hittite liver omina regarding the enemies, and closing with war dancing. This is a text that combines the ritual, the omen actions with the idea of historical war against the Kashka. The description above revealed that reading the archived tablets, which are regarded authoritative, allow later generations to enact them while connecting them to Hittite history, as well as maintain a corpus relevant to cultic needs. This may stand as a forerunner to compositions such as the books of Leviticus and Numbers. The Hittite laws. Now I would like to shift to the composition of the Hittite laws, a collection consisting of about 200 laws written down on 2 cuneiform tablets with dividing lines between each group of laws that the Hittite scribes apparently found to be related. The laws must have been accumulated for the first time at an early stage of the Hittite kingdom around 1650 and probably written down around 1500. And Theo van den Hout, trying to look at the Hittite laws from a perspective of the development of literacy among the Hittites, suggested that in Telepenus Rhine, the collection had already reached a fixed, one would almost be tempted to say, canonical form. I agree that this specific text of the laws is a canonical Hittite text, even if its language in matters such as syntax, morphology, and spelling has been changed from time to time in order to bring it up to date until the end of the Hittite kingdom. The fact that the laws were copied and recopied means they were used in the same way as the prescribed rituals were used for accumulation of knowledge. In a forthcoming contribution, I have claimed that the text of the Hittite laws has to be seen in comparison with biblical covenant code in Exodus and Deuteronomy, not only authoritative, but also considered divine, as they were transferred from the divine. In the same way, the Hittite king looks for Ishriul from the gods to direct him in cult activities, for learning from the ancient texts by searching knowledge knowledge accumulated by the old women. He would have consulted the text of the laws as a divine guidance. The cultic texts, which have an important effect on the relations with the divine world, mention two important concepts. One is the Ishriul concept of laws, that is to be interpreted as instructions for the order of the world. The second concept that was the basis of Hittite social conduct was the fact that the laws were protected by an oath, which was guarded by the divine world. Thus, the idea of accumulating them and using them in dire times gives them the status of power over humans. Their accumulation supported their canonical status as authoritative. The work of the scribes, though, was not an act of their own scientific initiative. Rather, it was royal policy, and even more so, it was royal ideology. As indicated above, those texts were seen as part of the important past of the Hittite royal house. The royal house used the archives to delve into past events which tell of the divine relations with the royal house, something that can be learned from and have moral consequences. Concluding remarks. The ancient Near Eastern scribal world offered a wealth of knowledge in various written forms. However, to the question whether it was a canon, I think we should follow the suggestions by both Horvitz and Schupak. We probably do not have the one biblical Jewish canon of first millennium CE, but we definitely are closer with what can be seen from the Hittites to be definition of ideological canon. The Hittite system of knowledge was administered and under the control of the royal house. The Hittite collection was well organized, as evident from the shelf lists. These are tablets that record the colophons of tablets according to their location on the shelves. Even if today we do not understand the logic of the order revealed in the lists, they show how careful the scribes were to maintain order and availability of the texts in time of need. These ancient texts were the Hittite legacy, but part of daily work for the scribes. They read them and managed to recopy them so they can be preserved. When copying, they did it as authentically to the state of the text as they could. Text colophons rarely identify the scribe, but do identify if the text belonged to a certain king or a certain cult functionary, such as old woman or old man. These clearly were regarded authoritative texts. They probably were more of a canon as a group of texts, as suggested by Shupak, specifically the ritual texts. Still, it is quite evident that the text of the Hittite laws should be regarded canonical, and in this regard, we should follow Horowitz's description of Mesopotamian canonical texts. The Dead Sea Scrolls, later manuscripts of the Second Temple, also offer, on the one hand, the canonical texts of the Hebrew Bible, but next to it have the non-biblical books such as Jubilees, Watchers, Enoch, Tobit, and others, which were not included in the later anthology. In that regard, the state of the texts in the Dead Sea Scrolls is probably more similar to the state of things in the Hittite archives. Both are forerunners of the later Jewish canon, as they are authoritative, considered authentic, and project the idea of the history of each culture, with its divine world. I would just show you the tablet of the laws. Thank you very much. And a little bit of reference. I stop here. Thank you.